these accounts of people that are accused and confess, it's so, again, so relevant to modern history in some ways, because what are we learning about the criminal justice system? People say, well, why would they confess if they didn't do it? I mean, I'm amazed at how relevant a lot of this history is. Were you?
And every day I would pick up the newspaper and think either I have become simple-minded and I'm completely monomaniacal, or this is very relevant.
Right.
Or all of the above, exactly.
Right.
But the false confessions are definitely, a part of this. I was writing some of this during Guantanamo days. It's strangely easy to exact a false confession, and sometimes a very detailed, in these cases, false confession. There were a lot of reasons for it in 1692, which are rather original reasons for it. Sometimes people confessed because they were afraid of being thrown into the dungeon with George Burroughs, the minister I was just talking about, because even the people who believe themselves to be innocent think the other accused witches are guilty. So the idea that you could be thrown into the dungeon with a wizard was more terrifying even than confessing to witchcraft. Sometimes people, there's a teenage girl who rides off to her hearing with her minister on one side of her and her brother on the other, and both the men are saying to her as they ride, admit it, you're a witch. And the young girl's saying, of course I'm not a witch. And of course, by the time they get to the hearing, she's admitted that she's a witch. A lot of people confess at a certain point because if you do so, you don't tend to hang. So it's a way to save your life. And a lot of people confess because, as many of us do, they have stains on their consciences.
Right.
And when they confess, what comes out is not only diabolical collusion, but a bout of drinking, or an episode of adultery, or a theft, or a polygamy, or there are other little peccadillos that come tumbling out.
I thought some of those confessions were just heart-wrenching. You can imagine the terror.
Yes.
And as you say, people who have done something that in this day and age would not be something to be ashamed of, but they're living with this sense of shame, and how exploitive.
Well, I was struck by two things: how exploited, how everyone has something on his or her conscience,
right?
But also how
that's what we're going to talk about a little later. Have people stand up.
You'll all be filling out little cards, sending them up here,
That's
and
right.
then we're going to point fingers. That's why you're here tonight,
Exactly,
and not at the hockey game. And also how everybody has something on someone else.
right?
The New England memory, except when it comes to 1692, is a very long memory. And people tend to remember generations old, this is very true of an oral culture, obviously, generations old grievances and litigation. And a lot of things come tumbling out in 1692 that reach back 10 and 20 and 30 and 40 years.